Today's guest, Michael Russell, is living proof that you can rebuild after hitting rock bottom. Once at the top of a thriving financial real estate business and a seemingly perfect life, his excessive lifestyle led to divorce, bankruptcies, and years of financial ruin. But here's the twist. Michael turned it all around. Now he's not only rebuilt his career in his personal life, but also helps others avoid foreclosure, bankruptcy, and a financial disaster through education and action. As president of Century 21 Signature Properties, he's made it his mission to guide others with wisdom, earned the hard way. Let's hear how he did it and what lessons we can take from his journey. What's up, my financially intentional people? I'm joined today by Michael Russell, and we're going to talk about financial hardships. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have gone through something that has been financially challenging in your lives. I know I have definitely had my share of financial hardships, and we're coming through a time of a lot of financial uncertainty, and with inflation and a whole lot of job losses that we've seen over the last couple of years. I know people are feeling it. So hopefully this conversation will give people some hope or some resources. So Michael, welcome. And I'm happy to have this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah, all right. So Michael, let's just talk about your background a little bit.
Sure.
I want to know how you got into the finance space and about your personal stories with any kind of financial hardship.
How much time you got?
Right.
So I've been in the real estate business my whole life. I've owned a real estate brokerage really since I was 19. This is the first real job I ever had. And even being in the real estate business and supposed to know more than the average person, I certainly ran into my fair share of struggle. And so back in 08, 09, I lost some properties to foreclosure. I entered into a forbearance agreement with the bank and not really understanding what that meant at the time, but that was truly an adjustment of the terms of the note, which brought my payment down significantly, but only for a finite period of time. And what it actually did is, back then, what it did is it shortened the term of the note. So the mortgage became a 2-year note at a significantly reduced rate, at which point I would either need to satisfy the note, pay it off, or refinance. And unfortunately, 2 years later, the values plummeted so bad that I couldn't refinance. I owed $250,000 more than the property was worth. Oh, wow. And so I really wasn't in a position to do anything about it. So lost that property. Had to short sale some properties as well. I owned a few different properties. And that led to having to file corporate bankruptcy as well as personal bankruptcy. It led to all the fun stuff that accompanies that, divorce. And what really stuck out to me was the collateral damage that ripped through my family for the better part of a decade as a result of it. It took me a long time to remedy the relationships, to cure what had happened to them. And it took me a long time to unencumber other assets that were retained. It took me literally 10 years to clear up that damage, both emotionally and literally.
Yeah.
And so that's really what sparked me to create this nonprofit that I have, Hope for Hardship. And it's near and dear to my heart. So I relate to people who are going through this. And so what my team and what my nonprofit does is helps people avoid foreclosure by opening up channels of communication with their lender. Because what I learned, of course, in hindsight, which we always learn in hindsight, unfortunately, is that there are two inalienable truths about secured debt in America. No lender wants to repo it or foreclose on it, and no owner wants to lose it. Those are two inalienable truths across the world. But what happens, I think, what happened to me, I probably had 2 years worth of unopened mail on my dining room table.
Yeah.
And I walk into a lot of houses where I see dining rooms that look like that. So I understand what people are going through. We never think that the person that we're afraid of, the entity that we're afraid of, is actually the one who can help us solve the issue.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. You get so caught up in this cycle of guilt that even the prospect of help seems helpless, right? There's hopeless. You're like, nobody can help me.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there.
It's unreasonably placed shame on yourself.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
everyone struggles. And, you know, if I've learned anything, and I was certainly an example of this, struggle is supposed to be a chapter. It's not supposed to be the whole damn story. But we make it the whole damn story, often to our own devices. We self sabotage sometimes, and we can make problems worse by ignoring them. And that's never the solution. Every lender, and no matter what it is, whether it's secured debt or unsecured debt, they want to work with you.
Yep.
They do. They want to speak with you. They want to propose assistance options. They want to do those things. We're the problem, typically, is, you know what I mean? It's usually not the lender that's the problem. You know, we did borrow the money and we do owe it. And I guess my real estate career and being in around it and dealing with banks for 30 years and going through all this stuff makes it tremendously elementary to me to fill out an assistance application and to call a bank. And there's no emotion for it, right? It's that's the greatest thing that I think that we really offer is a barrier to the emotions. I'll get on three-way calls with people a lot of the time, and they cannot maintain their emotions on the phone with the bank because it's tremendously personal. And when the bank says,
Yes.
"Oh, we're missing a bank statement. I sent you that," and they get so it's
Yeah.
infuriating. It's
Yes.
infuriating when you're going through it yourself. When you're one party removed, the expectation of banks coming across as unreasonable is just already there. I expect them to not have the document I sent 10 minutes ago. Yeah, I just
Exactly.
expect it, and I'm not angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the turnaround in my life personally on so many levels is what put me in a place where I do this. And what keeps me here is bearing witness to and playing a small role in the turnaround of others. Because if
Yeah.
anyone can if I can turn my life around, anybody can. And I really
Yeah.
believe.
People really do need to see examples of people overcoming financial adversity. Is very important because, like I said, it does feel like there's no hope and we've beaten ourselves up so much. You are your own worst enemies, your own worst enemy most of the time.
Yeah.
And if we could just get out of the way. But you said something in your story that was super impactful, and I want to just dive into it a little bit, is the effect that what you were going through financially had on your personal relationships. And a lot of times we don't talk about that, but it changes your life
It does.
substantially
Yeah.
because everything in life is about relationships. Money is the tool, relationships are what drives your life. That is your life energy. So talk about like how it damaged your relationship and what you were able to do to repair those relationships.
Sure. So it was a family business. You
Mm.
know, it was a family business that ran into great struggle that I was very culpable in creating from my own decisions and my own choices. Struggles that I could never get back on the same page with my father about. And we both played some role in the relative fiscal irresponsibility, but I played a bigger one. And I was far more naive and didn't really understand finances really at all. I was in my mid to late 20s. And I was actually never able to make a living amends with my father. He passed away before I was able to do that, you know?
Sorry.
Yeah. And so that's super hard.
Yeah.
And sobriety is a big part of my journey. I've
Mm.
been in recovery for almost 10 years, and that leads my path. That also, of course, plays a big role in why I want to pay it forward because I didn't always do that. But boy, I'll tell you, I certainly enjoy every day of my life being able to make amends to my mom. That's
Yeah.
really one of the most important relationships I have because she bailed me out more times than I can count. And 2 years ago, I bought her a house. And I
Oh my
never
God.
thought I'd
That's
be able to
amazing.
say that. It was usually me
Yeah.
trying to meet her in a parking lot and get $25,000 to save my day again or something to keep the business afloat. And I went through those things for a long time with my mom.
Mm.
And I take care of her in every possible way that I can today in a daily effort to try to just make some sort of amends to make us both feel better. No matter how old you are, it's really cool when your mother's proud of you, no
I
matter how
love
old you
that.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And so that
Mm.
stuff's super important to me. The home that I grew up in, that she lived in, once my father had passed, she still lived in there. And that property was encumbered by multiple attachments from the struggles that we had run into in 08, 9, 10, 11. And they had attached her primary residence as a result of it through no fault of her own. And that literally took me 10 years to solve, to
Wow.
finally get that albatross cleared off the books. And I never would have been able to do that if I didn't change my life. There's no question about that. And so, look, the financial stuff's easy, right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy in the moment, right? It's not easy in the moment. You couldn't, like, the day after I filed bankruptcy, or 2 years later, or 4 years later, you couldn't have convinced me that that was easy. Bankruptcy is a tool in America, I suppose. It's a tool that is right in some instances, but it also puts you in a place where you are unbankable in the eyes of any traditional lender in America. You are unbankable, you are untouchable, and you really don't have access to credit and being able to leverage things and make wise financial decisions once you file bankruptcy for the better part of 7 years.
Well, I know for my
Yeah,
personal bankruptcy, it took about 3 years and I was okay. But
yeah,
you have to file both personal and corporate
corporate.
bankruptcy,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah,
have no knowledge of.
yeah.
Like, how is the corporate bankruptcy different?
Oh, it was nightmarish. It was a Chapter 11, which is a reorganization similar to a Chapter 13, a cure and maintain plan. And I had to prove to the bankruptcy court on a monthly basis for the better part of a year that I shouldn't be converted into a Chapter 7, liquidated, my office closed, and everything going on. And nobody around me knew that that was the case. And so I was running this business that my father had wiped his hands of, understandably. And he said, "Hey, you know what? You think you can save it? Good luck." I lived in fear every day for a long time that the court was going to say, "You're not going to make it. We're converting to a Chapter 7. We're liquidating everything. You're out of business."
But when you say prove, does that mean you have to give them financial documents that you were financially solvent?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
had to write a letter once a month describing the activities of what was going on. I had to turn over my books. And so it was nightmarish. And none of these things can be compartmentalized and put into a box, as I'm sure they all blend very well together. And that
Yeah.
is the emotions, the splintering of relationships within the family, the struggle, both emotionally, financially, and just keeping up every day and keeping it all together in a place where you can come to work and act like everything's okay.
Yeah.
And that was really what that became my job, is just to pretend like everything was okay. Because it wasn't.
Wow,
Yeah.
doing all these things to make sure that you're just even just like maintaining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then to come in and whatever, we had 100 sales associates at that time, and just put on a face that whatever normal everyday business problems that they're having, you got to address those too. And so yeah, of course, it complicated things. It
Yeah.
complicated everything, life and your day to day process.
Hmm. What happened? You said you got a divorce. What contributed to that?
Yeah, sure. That was largely related to substance abuse, alcoholism, that kind of thing. I eventually, there would be a miracle in my life, but not soon enough. Not soon enough. And I just wasn't in the headspace to focus on the important things. When you face financial crisis, one of my struggles was um, my identity was so tightly bound to the company and how it did defined who I was, and whether I was enough or less than, or all of those things. There was a lot of false self, true self stuff going on in me when I faced these financial crises, what other people think. I had crazy spending habits beyond my means. I did a lot of self sabotaging. I created a lot of these problems, and my perspective and my focus were just on the wrong things. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to be like categorizing like people in a certain way, but I feel like for men in particular, like their worth is tied to being able to be successful financially.
Yeah.
And if they feel like they've fallen off in any kind of way, it's like a failure, and it affects every kind of every relationship that they're in, business, personal relationship. And I've seen that a lot. I'm not saying that women aren't like that at all, but moreover, I see the direct correlation between how successful someone is doing or how successful they are portraying that they're doing related to how they portray their worth.
There's no
Yeah.
question about it. It's the great American societal norms are broken, right? They are just broken. Men are
Yeah.
defined by what they earn. Women are defined by what they look like, and all the rest of this stuff. And it's. I swear a lot. I don't know if I can on this one, but it's a joke. You know what I mean? It's a joke. It is. It's just. They're unreasonable. They are unreasonable asks of people to be something more than you need to be. You know, it's broken. The American
Yeah.
societal norms are broken in this country, and I think they have been for a long time. But I think social media exacerbates that. You know,
Oh
there's
my
no
goodness,
question.
yes.
Sure, it's,
Yes.
let me flaunt my success. Let me flaunt how I look. Let me flaunt all of these things that are tremendously superficial and well below the surface of what really matters. And I think we all learn that on our own terms in our own time frame, or we simply never learn it.
Yeah. It is true. It is true. And I don't like to blame social media because I
No,
feel
I don't.
like,
Yeah,
social media is great.
yeah,
But however, the way people consume things
yeah,
and what comes up on their feed directly impacts how they
yeah,
look at themselves, right? There's a lot of comparison going on, and a lot of people feel the need to keep up with the Joneses. And
yeah,
it's even more prevalent now because it used to be
yeah,
just your neighbors and your coworkers,
yeah,
right? But now
yeah,
it's these millions of
sure.
people that you get a little glimpse inside their lives. Yeah,
Yeah, I grew up in the '90s. I didn't have to. Whatever, none of that stuff existed, right? But now I
exactly.
can't imagine being a 15-year-old.
No, I say that all the time. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm so scared for my kids. I'm just like,
Yeah,
goodness, the world that they have to grow up in is so much different. We didn't have phones like that. We
yeah,
didn't, and to have all of these things, not
yeah,
only just the way that they're inundated with all these advertising messages and all this kind of consumerism stuff, but just like what they're supposed to look like, what they're supposed to listen to, what they're supposed to be eating, like stupid stuff. There was this thing, my kids are only in elementary school, and there was this month where everybody had to have Prime, that drink, and it had to be like a certain kind of Prime. It couldn't be the Prime from 7-Eleven because that's not the real Prime. It was just like crazy. And I just like how these messages are so pervasive in everything that they do is scary as heck.
it is. There's no question about it, and it just
Yeah.
makes the fight even harder to just be okay with you.
Yeah.
I certainly struggled with that for most of my life. I
Yeah.
never really believed that I was enough. I always believed that I had to bring something additional and frankly unreasonable to every relationship conversation that I was in, and which would often force me to pretend I was someone I wasn't. And that plays a role in fiscal responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
and access
Mm-hmm.
to just a little bit of money in the grand scheme of things really blew that off the charts for me. I was out of control.
But what you're saying makes me think of financial infidelity and how people might not think that's what it is, but when they're not honest about what's going on financially, like when you were talking about you were going through this bankruptcy, but you had to play it off,
Yeah,
like in a relationship,
yeah, right.
that is
Yeah, sure.
that
It's
is a deal
identical,
breaker. But
right?
I know a lot of people do it and they think I'm doing this to protect or because I'm trying to avoid this conversation. I made this problem, but I'm trying to fix it. But that is financial infidelity. If your partner is not aware of what's going on in any part of your finances, and again, that's why most relationships end due to some kind of financial issue. It happens so often. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy.
it is. That's a perfect way to describe it. And
Yeah.
I certainly ended up in a conundrum, like where I thought that if I didn't keep buying these things, doing these things, acting this way, that I would lose everyone around me. That I didn't believe that really that I was enough, less than disease. I had that most of my life. And it took me a lot of work to realize that that's just not a true story. It's just the story I was telling myself in my head. And that takes far more effort than just being honest.
Yeah. Come on.
It's a full-time
Listen,
job.
because
It's a full-time
yes,
job to pretend you're someone
yes.
you're not. It really is. It was exhausting, and I didn't even know it.
It's exhausting. And then that exhaustion shows up in you not being present. It shows up in you not being able to have real conversations.
Absolutely.
In every way you communicate. That's one of my things. Like, I am too, not lazy, but I don't have the energy to lie. I don't have the energy to
Right.
be something that I'm not, because it is so much harder than just keeping it real and living in fear that you're going to hurt that person if you say the things, if you show up as who you are. Like, people need to see exactly who you are fully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is. It is. It's really a job, and you don't even
Yeah.
when it's happening, and it costs a fortune. It certainly cost me a fortune. There's no
Yeah.
question about it.
Yeah.
Father and I were big gamblers. We loved to gamble, and that is part of the story, right? Is we would go to Vegas, we would do things, and we would waste a lot of money. And that infidelity was like, literally, we had two sets of books, the real ones and the ones that we showed my mother. And that was the path. And that kind of started pretty young for me. And, over the course of just a little bit of time, what I was taught is normal, I started doing to my father.
Mm.
I started making him, all right, here are the real books. Here's what I'll show my father. And it just, like this stuff, family on family crime. It's like American crime. It's like the worst thing. And I have a ton of regrets with all that stuff. I wish that I had known better and done better.
But it sounds like that's the kind of way you started your business in your teens. If that's what you knew,
Sure.
you did what you were taught, right? And
Sure.
it's just, yes, of course there's accountability, but also if that is what you, and that's what you know, that's how you act. Like, more is caught than taught, right? That's how you were trained to maneuver through your business. And I know it was hard at the end not being able to make amends with your father,
Yeah.
but a lot of it was because of the way that you guys ran your
Yeah,
business, right?
sure.
And that's
Right?
really sad. Yeah.
I thought it was cool. I really did. I thought it was cool at 21, 22, 23. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, this is great. Okay, so we got two lives. I got it. Check. Got it. No problem. Because money was always my drug of choice.
Mm.
And it's the hardest one to break. That money
Yeah.
thing it is a defining thing still to this day in my life, even through great work and great efforts to recover in my life. Money's still a problem. There's no such thing as enough. I'll say till the day I die that the amount of money that'll make me feel okay inside is $5 more than I'll ever have. And I'm aware of that.
That was a powerful quote.
Listen, I'm totally aware of it. I don't
Yes.
like it, but I'm totally aware of it. But so money is a great tool. It's an outstanding thing, and it provides convenience. Is really all money does. It makes my life more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
But making the right decisions with it most of the time is the best any of us can do.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as perfection in this. There isn't. It
Mm-hmm.
is not challenging to get yourself back to an 800 credit score and keep it there. You just have to do things within reason. It takes time and discipline. But there are addictions at play with everyone in America when it comes to this stuff. It couldn't be easier to buy something today. Like it'll
My
take me like
goodness.
it's, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Amazon, like just name it. It's so easy to spend money, and it's hard for people to find the confidence and break through the fear of investing money. When I have realtors who work for me, and every single realtor I ever interviewed in my life came in here and said they want to invest in real estate. And very few of them actually do. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a firm believer that real estate is still the best way to long-term sustained wealth in America. It is, unless you're going to create an app, and those skills wave bye-bye to me. It's a great way to do it, but there are so many fears and obstacles in people to get to a place where they're comfortable doing it. And the way that I always found it worked best for me was to find good partners instead of feeling like you have to do everything alone. And that's a process too. Partners are tough. I've had bad ones, I've had great ones, but there are investments that people can make in their lives and in their future that can help make life easier, because 10 years from now, I'm not going to have the same energy I have today. I'm not going to want to keep working all the time. And
Exactly.
it's recognizing that it's growing up. Really, it's
Yeah.
growing up and stop
Yeah.
living in the day and the moment and thinking that you're invincible and thinking that you'll be able to earn the same amount of money at 70 as you could at 45 is just an unreasonable ask.
Yeah. I'm curious, like when people come to you through your nonprofit, Hope
Yeah.
for Hardship, what do they expect they're going to get? Do they think that they're just going to get like these tactical steps that they need to do to improve or get out of whatever hardship that they're in?
Yeah.
Or do they understand that a lot of it is the things that we've been talking about, those emotional things, the help with understanding what drove you to have those behaviors? Did you have to unlock that trauma of being in a family that kept two books? Like, how do people come to you, and then how ultimately do they really get the help?
So most people are looking for immediate gratification, right?
Yeah,
They're looking for an immediate
that's it.
solution,
Anything.
right? They're
That's
looking
it.
for
In
the magic
anything.
pill, right? Most people. I spend the vast majority of my days, every single day, talking people out of their own way. That's what I spend my time doing. Now, I
Hmm.
will say that there is a small segment of true victims of
Yeah.
things that were outside their control, health,
Hmm.
things that, but I'm telling you, it's small in my experience. The vast majority of folks are in some stage of denial about the severity of the situation, whose fault it is. There are far too many fingers in this world and nowhere near enough thumbs. It's just the reality of it. It's just the way it is.
Uh,
And
yep.
for some reason, people like that resonate with me because I completely understand the behavior. I don't judge it at all. And
Hmm.
I know better. And we have a pretty solid dialogue. But yeah, so I break through those expectations. I'm pretty curt, but understanding and empathetic. And the way that we do this is what people fail to recognize is most people that I talk to that are in this situation tried something already.
Hmm.
They tried to get, because every bank in America, when you have a mortgage, they will allow you to fill out an application for assistance. And it's essentially just a very simple application. It's 6 pages: income, expenses, assets, like what's your monthly income, some supporting documentation, a couple bank statements, some recent pay stubs. You need to prove, that's what we do, is we build a case to the bank that you are a viable bet. That if we help you with the arrearage, the past due amount, you will be able to resume normal payments in a couple months. And so
Hmm.
that's what we do. But what most people do is they get this application, they send it in completely incomplete. And then they say, no, I sent that in 3 months ago. The bank never called me. And I'm like, dude, that's not how this works. It's not the bank's job to chase you. It's your job to chase the bank. And
Hmm.
that's what we do. And so we just understand the timelines. We fill out the application, we gather the supporting documentation, and then we call every 3 business days. Just calling for a status update on file 1234. We submitted the application. I see there's missing documentation. We sent that in. I just want to confirm that it's received, because all a bank needs to do is get the application to something they call certified complete. That can
Hmm.
take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to after all the missing documents. There's always something missing. We're missing page 7. It's ridiculous. So we
Yes.
get all the documentation together. We finally get it complete. And then the bank will put the file under review. Once it's under review, they will pause foreclosure proceedings.
Mm.
Every bank will do this. And then upon successful review, which can take up to 30 days, they'll reach back out and say, okay, we've reviewed the file. It's gone to underwriting. These are the options available to you for assistance. And then we help them go through the different options. Most of them end up in retention, where they can retain the property if they agree to go through these different things. Some of them are non-retention. Some of them are, hey, listen, we can't offer you any assistance. You need to sell the asset. When that happens sometimes, it's rarer, but it happens. People, if they don't have a job, if they don't have any income, it's very hard to get a bank to agree to give them assistance, right? But I'll tell you that the hardest thing that anyone in this situation faces, and I understand it completely, is getting your place to a level of acceptance sometimes when it's necessary. And that acceptance often has to be, I'm going to have to leave this property. Mm-hmm. That is such a hard obstacle to get over. People feel rightfully and wrongfully entitled. People make the mistake of believing it's their home when what it truly is in the eyes of the law is collateral. That's what that is. I know you raised your family in it. I know where all the skeletons are buried and all the warts are and all the rest. But listen, that is collateral in the eyes of the bank, and they're coming for it. And so that's the most challenging conversation when we try to resolve it in any different way. And the final answer is no, we will not work with you. Getting them to a place where they have to understand that dispersing of the asset, moving on from it, selling it in some traditional fashion is always better than foreclosure. You can always leave your home on your terms. If you do nothing and you dig in and you go with that denial thing, I've witnessed that probably 300 times in my career. It's called a lockout. And what happens here in my state anyway is the sheriff shows up with a box truck and two movers, and they knock on the door and they say, you have an hour. Everything you want to keep, they'll put in the truck, but then we're changing the locks and you're out on the curb. We'll store your belongings for 30 days and then they're your responsibility. That is one of the most torturous things to witness. And most people don't think that can happen. So not only do you get the public event on your credit report, just like a bankruptcy, foreclosure, but you get no money from the sale and it's on the bank's terms. And so there's so many options prior to foreclosure. And so that's really, I don't know them all, but I feel like I do. I've been doing this a long time. And for a long time in my life, I think we all enter people's lifelines and we are an inflection point somewhere in their lifeline. And for a lot of years, I would be a negative inflection point and the trajectory of someone's life would go down from that point forward. And now I just pride myself on being a positive inflection point and playing a role in positive trajectory from people's lives after they speak with me. And that's why I do it for free.
Well, that is a very important thing. That's crazy that you offer these services. How do people typically find you? And at what point in this process of potentially losing their homes are they?
Sure. So in most states, there's a notice of foreclosure posted publicly. Mm-hmm. And so I reach out to all of those people.
In your state or?
Right now in 3 different states, we actively pursue conversations with them, but we can do this nationwide. We do it anywhere.
And what's 3 states are those?
Florida, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yep. Those are the ones that we currently, and eventually, as we ramp up here, we will reach out to everyone nationwide that runs into this problem because the commonalities it's so simple. Like there's only 20 banks servicing companies in America. Right. There's not a ton of them, and they all have the same thing. And at the stage they're in is emotionally, the stage they're in is denial. But the stage they are in, they are usually, if they did absolutely nothing, they are between 90 and 120 days away from a foreclosure auction being scheduled. Ooh. So timing is everything. Time's your enemy in this situation. I can say what I've learned is if you're about 300 or less days behind on your mortgage, and I'm not suggesting you just go get to that point, but if you're under 300 days behind on your mortgage, there are great options available to you with your bank. If you are less than 30 days away from an already scheduled foreclosure auction, you have very limited options. The bank has already invested significant capital in hiring attorneys, auctioneers, scheduling these things. They've already cleaned title. They've done everything. They're on their path. They're ready to foreclose. They're a lot less interested in working with you. So that timing is so important. And one of the struggles I run into is, look, I don't want to disparage anybody, but there are people in this world who simply seek to capitalize on what they perceive to be somebody else's misfortune. And when a foreclosure notice is published, you better believe they come out of the woodwork. And so I'm not the only person reaching out to them.
You're not the only one looking at those.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it makes my job that much harder to get them to a place where they understand. They'll say, what do you mean free? I'm like, no, really. And I share my story and why I do this. But it's the more I get out there, the more I do stuff like this with you, the more I do this, the more people can easily vet me. And I have a dozen people who will just call someone for me and share their story. Hey, listen, I didn't trust him either. You know what I mean? But you can trust what he says. And I think the world's just converged. I think it's a perfect scenario. I've been in and around real estate for 30 years. And so I have the knowledge and the understanding of how to do this. I have great personal ties to this. And so I have empathy and I'm able to understand what people are going through. And so it's not super hard work for me. It's actually the thing that I enjoy the most in my day, is talking to people and helping them find resolutions to financial struggle. And then a lot of these people become my friends. I've got some really good friends in this that didn't trust me at all when I walked into their living room. And but it's tremendously rewarding. The turnaround in your life wasn't immediate. I'm sure it took some time, right? The turnaround in everyone's life does.
So how are you able to do this for free?
I turned my life around quite a bit. I made a lot of investments in my life after I got sober. And I turned my life around. I still own a real estate company that's productive, and I have a manager who runs it for me. And so that makes my life a lot easier, And so it allows me the free time to focus on this, which is really, I don't know. Someone said it's my passion project.
I was going to say that. That's what came to mind.
I guess, right? Sure. That's what it is, right? I've been in every arena of real estate. There are buckets, right? There's people who are so excited, first-time home buyers, leveling up, buying your dream home. And there are all these experiences. And the ones that always stuck out to me and resonated with me were the sad ones. Those lockouts I described. Death, divorce, disaster. There are reasons people sell real estate that are not happy. And what resonated with me was my ability to have empathy and communicate with people when they were going through something very challenging. It never really resonated with me much that someone was excited they were buying a house. For some reason, I think the one thing in life you can't fake is shared struggle. I can fake anything, but I can't fake that. And that's, I think, what it is I understand struggle. And I have a way of effectively communicating with people, I think, that have gone through it. And it's what I enjoy most. There's nothing better than meeting someone when they're down and out and then knowing them when they're not. I don't know of something more rewarding in life. And that it's service work, right? It's service work. And that's a big part of my recovery. Is the deal that I made was just to pay it forward to the next man or woman. That's the deal I made.
I love that. And I appreciate you for that, because it's not a lot of people just helping out of the bottom, like from the bottom of their heart, like with no strings attached. It's very rare that we find these people. And so I'm honored that I'm able to share you with my platform. So if people wanted to work with you, do they have to get to the point where they get the foreclosure notice? Or if they are at a point where they're falling behind on their mortgage, or they foresee themselves falling behind on their mortgage, can they still reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Miss one payment and the likelihood that people are going to catch up is very small. And so, yeah, absolutely. And being proactive is great. So, yeah, they can call me direct at 508-501-9214. They can go to my site, learn about my story. It's hope, the number 4, hardship.org. So hope, the number 4, hardship.org. And you can learn anything about me. I'm an open book. I'll tell you anything you want to know. And there's nothing you're going to ever tell me that I'm going to judge.
I love that. And like I said, again, I love being able to connect people who are there to just genuinely help, because that is not the case across the board. Usually
It isn't.
somebody has something to sell. I'm
Yeah,
not
it is
saying
what it
anything
is.
about that, but that means that you've done a lot in your life to overcome those things, that your struggles that you went through, and you set yourself up to be in a place financially, mentally, spiritually, time wise, to be able to give back. And that I want to really give you your props for, because that's what most people aspire to. You aspire to be to a place where you don't have to work for money anymore, but you can genuinely serve in the areas that bring you passion without having to worry about money. I know that is my personal goal.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that are on the path to financial freedom, like that is their goal. I don't have to work for money, so I can serve in the area that brings me joy. And so I am fangirling you for being in that space.
Awesome.
And
Thank
again, I aspire to be like that. But also, I am super grateful that you're in this role, that you can do that, because being there, just like you, I've been there in that place of hopelessness and not knowing what to do. We're the same age.
you. Right.
We were going through the things at the same time. That 2008, 2009 is when I went through my foreclosures. I had 2 foreclosures. I had 2 short sales, and nobody was able to walk me through those journeys, because
Yeah.
the real estate agents that I have been working with were going through similar things themselves. And we were just
It's
kind of like,
true.
nobody knew what to do. First of all, it was all unprecedented times. The
It
mortgages were way
was.
different than they were
Yeah.
before. Nobody kind of knew what to do.
Yeah.
And to be able to have a resource like you would have changed my financial trajectory. It would have changed the trajectory of my life, period. So I want people to understand how important having access to someone like Michael is, to having access to what hope for hardship is. So if you're not in this personal situation, I'm sure there is somebody just one person removed from you, somebody that is struggling paying for their mortgage, somebody who is a couple of steps away from losing their home. So if this information from this podcast can't benefit you, please share it with someone who can benefit from it. Because, and
Yes.
I'm not trying to overwhelm you by the
No,
responses that you're
listen,
going to
it's
get.
my honor. Yeah. No, listen, it's my honor. There's no shame.
Yeah.
There's no shame in falling behind.
Yeah.
And what I've learned about people in life is that if you stop paying your mortgage payment, there are other problems in your life.
Yes.
There are other problems in your life that in the day-to-day process are actually even bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can help. I can help you. I'm no different. I wish someone like me was around when I went through this. Unfortunately, I had to go through all of it to figure this out. But the
Yeah.
reality is, I could have helped myself, my future self could have helped my past self make much more strategic, wiser decisions that would have put me in a much better place coming out on the back end. And that's the reality of it. And so it's my honor to try to help people do that. I think it's a great thing to do. I enjoy it.
Yeah. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do, because I
So,
know the impact it can have. And I'm begging my audience to make sure that they save your information, that they
cool.
share your
Yeah.
information, and
Awesome.
that they reach out to you. And I just appreciate having this conversation. It definitely brought up the emotions of the things that
Yeah.
I was going through at that time,
Yeah.
and just thinking of like how impactful you could have been for me. But at the same time, I'm just super grateful that I'm able to have access to you and be able to share you with my audience. And I appreciate you taking the time to
Of
come
course.
and
Thank you
talk
for
to
the
my people,
opportunity.
because
Yeah.
we need more conversations like this.
No
So I'm
question.
grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad to
Yeah.
meet, and hopefully we'll talk again in the future.
Most definitely. And I'll put all your information in the show
Cool.
notes. So your
Yeah.
phone number, your website,
Yeah.
everything. So you guys reach out to Michael, check out Hope for Hardship. and be in touch again, share,
Yeah.
save, like this episode, save his information, because I can guarantee you there's somebody, one person removed. If it's not you that needs to hear it, there's a person just right next to you that needs to hear this. Yeah.
Keep the
All right.
faith, everybody. Keep the faith. You're
Yes.
going to be all right.
There is hope. There is hope. And
Yeah.
again, it's hard if you're in the situation to think that there is help for you, but there is help. And don't let your pride get in the way of you seeking out that help and doing the things that need to be done for you and your family. Because even if you don't have kids, even if you're not in a relationship, it's affecting your life in some way, in more ways than just you losing this house. So it's super important that you get ahead of it. So thanks again,
Amen. Thank you
Michael.
so much. Yes. Great. Awesome.